We are back. God damn, it's been a busy day today.
Yes, it has.
Yeah. You guys may be watching this later. This stuff may already start coming out, but we are. I'm just gonna say it. I'm bored. I'm fucking bored, John. Content is getting so fucking boring, and that's kind of what the direction that content is going is boring content. And I get it. I totally understand that people want relatability and just like mundane, normal life things, and it's crazy how it works. But I'm fighting that.
Well, the stuff that we were working on today is going to turn out on its head pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe not. Maybe it bombs, but I just want to have fun.
But it's going to be different either way.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to have fun with content again, and I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, the amount of people that I am in contact with, I mean, obviously yourself, but Jay and the wrestlers that I get to be around, the fighters I get to be around, the actors, a bunch of athletes, things like that. It's like, what the hell am I doing? Not like creating something really cool for us to just play off of. And then we have like the best videographer in Orange County by far. Hey, Freddie.
Freddie, what's up, brother?
You guys had fun today? Or
Oh, dude, it was a lot of work, man. You had us working.
it was fun though.
It was good. But my thing is it's like, if I'm bored, then I can change it. And the way to change it is to come up with some new, fresh shit. So anyways, we're starting to work on this project, which is just going to be like a weekly short form episode, basically. That's like a minute long that is action packed and fun and kind of has a message behind it. But either way, it's been fun.
Today's been a lot of fun. Absolutely, brother.
And this is kind of a good, it's good timing. It's like, as I'm like, we've had some good accomplishments. We've grown a really cool business, a really cool community. But at the same time, it's like, there's always more to do. And I'm coming up on my sobriety birthday here next week.
No shit. How many years?
So my last drink was 5 years ago. But I consider my actual sobriety birthday the last day I took a prescription medication. And even though I was prescribed, I still misused them.
Well, dude, that's all my addictions were based around prescription medication. 100%. I mean, it was like, and unfortunately, as you understand, of course, it's tough on us, but it's really tough on the people around us.
100%. So I would imagine, being a wrestler and stuff like that, you were painkillers. Yeah,
I mean, realistically, it started off in strongman. Because you basically compete at the highest level, and there's a lot of shit that goes into that. And when you get there and you're in pain, the last thing that you want to do is not be able to perform because of the pain, or even worse, like in my case, I got there quick, and I was like, I dinged my back up early in my career. I ruptured some discs, and I was like, I'm not stopping, because this is like, I got here, and then you take a break like that, you may not get back to where you were. Somebody else steps in your place. So, and of course doctors are going to be really helpful, especially if that's what you're doing. And so they were happy to write me prescriptions. And
well, back then it was so loose. What time period was this?
This would have been mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then what really got me good was, then if I got hurt and I had to get a surgery, then coming out of surgery, they were really, really liberal. And that's when Oxycontin came into my life.
Oh. So before, I would imagine it was Vicodin, Norco.
Yeah, you start off with the Vicodin, then you realize you need a little more. You go to the Norco, and then you go to the Percocets, because basically the Vicodin is 5 milligrams of the drug, 325 milligrams of the Tylenol.
Of acetaminophen.
Yep. And then the next step up is the Norco, which is the 10 milligram. Yep. And then the 15 milligram is the Percocet. So I got to the Percocet level, and I was kind of hanging there. The Vicodin, I would have took too many Vicodin, and it'd make me sick because of all the Tylenol.
Right. Yeah, it would do that to me too. I actually went through that too. I had a knee injury, and I prolonged that injury. I milked that thing as long as I could. And then the knee injury turned into a back injury, and it was like, you know, it was constant. And I totally know, like, you know, I stopped. So it's funny. I have an interesting story real quick, and I don't know if I've told you this before, but the truth is OxyContin is what saved me.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the opposite for what. So with me, and
almost killed me.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So I drank though, and I was a heavy drinker. So I started drinking on Norco like young. I just like that was just part, like, you know, pop a couple Norco, pop a
Makes
couple
the booze work a lot better.
Yeah, sure does, right. And that was like what my cocktail was, and I let that run for a long time, to the point that, though, like, obviously, like, you know, 2 Norcos didn't work, Norco 10s, and then you'd go all the way up to, like, you know, I had to take 20 Norco 10s in a day, you know. And
real quick, you know, the crazy part is the Tylenol just pollutes your liver.
Mm-hmm.
The liver is getting beat up by the Tylenol, not the drug.
Well, yeah, that and the Jim Beam, or, you know, or whatever I was drinking at the time, and that changed all the time too. So, you know, when it got to that point, my doctor was like, Justin, I'm going to take you off Norcos, and I was getting the tube, you know, the
big
bottle,
boys.
the tubes, you know, like
Look like a can of Coke, a tall
right,
can
yeah,
of Coke.
or like a Pog Slammer, like it was like serious, and he said, you know, the acetaminophen is getting, it's too much for you. You're gonna hurt yourself.
Yep.
He said, we're gonna put you on OxyContin. And right then I was like, oh, OxyContin. And like at that time, like Heath Ledger had died because he was drinking on Oxy. Well, I wasn't gonna give up drinking. And in my eyes, like the cocktail was OxyContin, and alcohol that's what kills you. Well, I wasn't gonna give up the drinking. So, and I didn't want to die. But I was so naive to drugs that I had no clue that, like, I was taking a lethal dose of Norco. Yeah. It's the same difference.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I never abused the OxyContin. But my tolerance was so high that the OxyContin didn't do anything for me.
Interesting.
It didn't affect me. You know what I mean? So like I took them, and then it would just keep me from feeling sick. Right, because I was addicted to the opioid, so it would keep me from getting sick. But so after a few months, it was like I wasn't getting high from them.
Yeah. Almost like it leveled you out in the beginning.
Yeah. So I just at one day stopped taking them, and I was like, you know, sick to my stomach for a month, and then after that, I stopped taking it altogether. And, you know, I had a couple other run-ins, but I was always back to Norco. Like, that was like the drug. I never really went above and beyond that, but the amount of Norco that I would take.
Yeah. You know, the interesting thing about my experience with addiction is I kept getting addicted, and I kept beating it. So I beat it over and over and over. And then I would get hurt again. I would basically get reintroduced for rehab and to get back in the ring quick, or get back on whatever I was doing, you know, back on the circuit for strongman. And I would beat it, get back to normal. I would use basically, I guess that would be the simplest way to put it, is, you know, that I think the fact that I have the discipline that I have, and I live my life with these, you know, I'm a big habit guy. Yeah. And when I structure my day in a certain way, it became much easier with my discipline and my habits. It became much easier for me to separate myself from the drug. And as we know, you get enough separation and you got a chance, you know? And so it's pretty crazy, because a lot of times people get addicted and it just goes until something happens, whether they go to rehab or it kills them or whatever it is. You know, man, I would say I probably went in and out of that thing 10 times.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good feeling. And you know, I don't know how deep it got for you, but, you know, especially like, and back then, you know, doctors made this so fucking easy. And we know the story, and we know what's going on now. Like Purdue Pharma has, you know, completely shit the bed, and it's a huge deal right now, right? The opioid epidemic, you know, it's really set the tone right now to where it's like, it's not a good situation. And guys that are still addicted, like now fentanyl it's like so lucky that we got away from it.
Because, I mean, literally, I had a buddy of mine who just passed away about 6 months ago. He was, I'd actually, helped him with his addiction. And for the most part, he was in kind of trouble. His wife passed away, and she died of cancer. So he started using the pills that she was using because he was just medicating himself to get through it. And he'd pretty much gotten himself, to the point where he was very well managed, wasn't really using, but every once in a while he would just get a couple pills, and he was the guy that would take a couple of pills and then sit on his recliner and watch TV. That's all it was. And unfortunately, he got some that had fentanyl and went to sleep, never woke up.
Oh.
Crazy. Nobody's dying off 2 Vicodins unless they're laced with fentanyl.
100%. Yeah, it's Russian roulette with every drug right now, and that's why I'm just so fortunate. So as I'm coming up, on my birthday, it's like easier now if you have a desire to live. It's easy to turn it away, but I think also though in your industry, there's guys in our industry, there's guys that it's so funny to me how they suffer in silence to the point where it's like, if you can relate, if you can show a little bit of relatability, a lot comes out. And it's funny because guys will reach out to me and be like, yo man, I want to get in shape. And then as you unpeel the layers of the onion, you start to realize, holy shit, you have issues.
Yeah. Yeah. And the crazy part about it is that, when you've been through getting through addiction yourself, especially in my case, I never went to rehab. I just used my lifestyle, my habits, and my discipline to get myself out of it. And you realize there's a pretty clear roadmap once you've done it a few times. And people think that that's not the case, but it's just they need the information and they need the guidance and they need the backup to get through it. And the crazy part about it is, when it comes to like exercise and eating well, it's like the foundation of feeling better,
Yeah.
And so, diet and exercise as kind of a foundation to help someone get back on their feet. I've had a number of clients that have come to me that just want to stop drinking. And it's not like they're alcoholics. They just want to stop drinking. And that is so easy. But they've struggled with it for years and years and years. They just don't have the information on the roadmap to do it.
Right. Yeah, it's there's a lot of programs. I myself work a 12-step program, but that's not the only way to get sober. And a lot of people find, just being a healthier version of themselves, like really diving into, personal development and nutrition and fitness and all of that stuff. And that's fantastic. But a lot of times, and people would argue that that's a Band-Aid and that's a temporary Band-Aid for a deeper rooted issue. A lot of times, people there's addiction issues that stem deeper than it was offered. I like the way it felt, and that's the reason that I kept doing it. Now, you may think that your discipline was the reason that you overcame it, but it might have been other coping mechanisms that you were able to utilize, right? Because I can't imagine, your life was easy peasy growing up, or was it?
No, hell no. That's the one thing too. That's a huge part of how I help people with, addiction as well. Is that, you look back at your life and everybody has a story, and the story is as simple as your story. Well, X, Y, Z happened to me in my past life. That's why I have this struggle with my life today. Or is it thank God X, Y, Z happened to me in my past because it made me who I am, and that is me. I thank my lucky stars for all of the shit that I had to go through as a kid. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like I remember it wrong. It wasn't like I had it the worst. It wasn't like I was molested or something like that. I had a whopping learning disability. And, back in those days, there was no, they didn't diagnose you. They just put you in a classroom with all the slow kids. And on the other side of the classroom, there were kids that were legitimately not going to have a normal life.
Okay.
But they didn't really have a separator. It was like, okay, he can't keep up, so let's put him over there. And so, obviously, getting put in that setting and being slow, and then being slow and being teased, I ran to food to comfort myself. So now I'm slow and I'm in the resource room, otherwise known to everybody else as the retard room. And
I remember that room.
I'm getting picked on, and I am eating up a storm trying to comfort myself, and it just turns into this spiral of like, I mean, it was, I mean, in my own mind, you know, the world was crashing down. I mean, I woke up every day, and I was worried. I mean, I woke up in fear. I was like, okay, I got to ride an hour on the bus to school. You know, who's going to spit in my face? You know, and I get to school, who's going to stack me on the lockers? And keep in mind, at the time, I was very much, you know, I didn't really understand it, but I was a victim. I just was, this stuff was happening to me. And it was like, I hadn't learned to flip the script. And then, obviously, to fast forward a little bit, once I discovered lifting weights. That was, you know, I was basically forced to lift weights because, you know, if you wanted to play sports, you had to lift weights for PE. Well, hell, I'd rather drinking chocolate milk and eating maple bars, but that's what I had to do. So I quickly realized I was better at lifting weights than I was at sports I was playing. And I had my first little bit of, I guess you call it, what I felt was success. And that started to help, you know, with, you know, my self-esteem, and that's how my whole weightlifting journey started. And as I got a little older, I look back and I realized, man, had I not gone through what I went through in that first chunk of my life, I would not be who I am. And here's why. I mean, I couldn't do things. I shouldn't say couldn't. At the time, I literally couldn't. I was even told I couldn't do things like the other kids. So as I started to gain confidence through lifting weights, I started to realize I have to figure out a way to do this differently. So I became a massive problem solver at a young age. And so I wasn't following the pack because I had a hard time, you know, staying afloat, so to speak. So I went my own way, became really good at solving problems, which that might be one of the biggest blessings ever in my life, because from the time I was young, just realized I'm not following the pack. I got to do it my way. And, you know, that basically leads me to the life that I live right now. I've never, ever collected a paycheck or had a job.
Yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah, most people, they basically end up in a job they don't want to go to, and they spend their life doing that shit.
Yeah, that's for sure. You've gotten, you know, you've kind of been on the back end of what usually is like the success totem pole, where it's like, you know, first you get paid for what you do, then you get paid for what you know, and then you get paid for who you are. Mm-hmm. But you actually had that kind of out of that order. You know, you've had it a little flip-flopped there. You know, you've been paid for who you are and what you know. You know, from the get-go, and that's a different vibe. You got to realize too, it's like the you know, just like the hierarchy of successful people. The smallest percent are people who are like athletes, artists, things like that. So the people who get paid for who they are is the smallest percent of people who have achieved monumental success in life. So being a professional athlete is a big deal. Like, I mean, that's a big deal. But the funny thing is the problems are exactly the same.
Oh, well, and that's the thing. I mean, people tend to look at other people and think, oh, you know, they don't have bullshit. Everybody's got problems, you know, and everybody's problems are unique to them, and they're just as important, and they're just as big, and they're just as scary. It's always easy to look across the table and say, I wish I had his problems, until you were sitting in his shoes with those problems and go, holy shit, maybe I don't.
Right.
You know?
It's so true. It's so true. And, you know, and too, like, you know, so you were a fat kid too?
Yeah.
Nice. Me too.
And it literally, I so think, I mean, I count my lucky stars I was overweight. I count my lucky stars I was slow. I count my lucky stars that I had to figure out a way to do it my way. Here's a perfect example. So I go to college, right?
Where'd you go?
University of Portland. And the only reason I got in is because it was a private school, terribly expensive, and we were paying full boat to get me in. So they were like, yeah, come on. And so, I mean, if I told you my SAT scores, you probably wouldn't believe me. And I took them multiple times. It was just that was me. Anyway, so I get there, and I'm like, you know, I'm solving problems as they come. I'm not looking for the problems ahead of time. So I get to college, and I think, okay, I'm in my dorm room. Okay, I got to go buy books. I got to get prepared. So I go to the bookstore and I buy these books. And keep in mind, up to that point, I hadn't read a complete book ever in my life. And so I come back to my dorm room with these books, and I grabbed the thinnest one, and I opened it up. I'm like, shit, there's no pictures in here. Literally. So I spent about 3 hours trying to go through the first chapter and digest it. It was probably 10 pages. It wasn't a big chapter. And I thought, man, I'm not going to make it if I have to get the information out of these books. So I had time to problem solve. So I went to each professor. It was a small school, so I could actually meet with them. And I said, hey, what percentage of the grade is from lectures and what percentage of the grade is from books? And so and quite a few of them said, well, 75% from the lectures, 25% from books.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm good. I need to go to class. I need to pay attention, take notes, and I can pass. And so I realized in those classes, I just never worried about it. Now, sometimes they say, well, 50% lectures, 50 from the books. Well, then I had to find somebody in that class to help me get the information out of the books. Mm-hmm. Usually it was heavier female.
All right.
Because, it was like, it was easier, forgive me for saying, but easier to manipulate.
Yeah.
I needed to buddy up to her to figure out how to get the information out of those books. And she wasn't getting a lot of male attention, so it was perfect, But point being is that I figured out literally in the first semester of college, how I was going to get through college without being able to read the material.
I see.
And I did it. And I graduated with a major in theology and minor in philosophy.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a perfect example of my problem-solving skills. And then that led right over into entrepreneurship. In college, I could go make $25,000 and painting. I basically painted homes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would knock on doors, say, I'll paint your home for $1,500. Back in those days, it cost $300 for the paint. I'd get a couple of buddies to paint it. I'd start knocking on more doors.
Yeah.
And
nice.
so, but people, you can't do that. You're not going to make money doing that. Okay, well, I do everything in a way that people think's not going to work. So
sure.
So another thing too is another one of my blessings is I overcame basically failure very quickly early in my life because I was failed nonstop. And I was told I couldn't do shit. So I just kind of I was so used to hearing it, it didn't stop me. I was like, okay, you might be right, but I'm going to try.
Right. I saw this thing the other day, and I reacted to this thing that I just had to. It was Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan. And he says people hate the guy who came from nothing, the guy who overcame everything to become successful more than they hate the guy who was given everything. And that seems backwards, right? That seems backwards because, but it's not.
It's a jealousy because
it's that. So look, the guy who was handed everything, you can write that off, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it was a lotto ticket. He had it coming, he was silver spoon. He had all of it. Right. But the guy who came from nothing and overcame everything makes that person look stupid.
Yeah,
makes that person look lazy.
100%, because they're basically jealous of the fact that person that did it got off their ass and they found a way to get what they wanted.
Right.
And they're looking at themselves and they're disappointed in themselves and they're jealous of what they're not doing.
Jordan Peterson says it casts them in a really dim light.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
I love that. I saw that. I was like, oh my God, this is it's so factual. It's like, and you know what's funny is that I actually have a history in my life of always going against the grain. Mm-hmm. My entire life, I've always made it harder on myself than it had to be. And people would always say to me what the fuck are you doing? You have the world at your fingertips. Or all you have to do is conform in this situation and, work for your family and do all of this. And it was I always had to no, half of it was my own addiction issues and my own, just my own ego and things like that. But the other part was I wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
Right. And I just didn't know what I wanted to do until I found purpose.
Mm-hmm. Purpose is everything, and it's crazy. So many people never find it. That's why they're so unfulfilled.
Right. Yeah.
It's crazy,
It is. And that was for me, it took a lot of work. So here's the deal. Purpose took a lot of waking up from a rock bottom. Okay, I had to hit a point to where it was like the pain of changing outweighs, or the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change. Sorry, I got fucked up there. But you know, it was just it was like a big wake up call for myself. But at the end of the day, it turned into a huge situation for me, a huge win.
Absolutely, brother. I mean, sometimes to find your purpose, you got to go through a lot of shit. You know, I mean, it's like, again, going back to what I said before. I mean, the things that you think fucked you up the most are your biggest blessings. You know, I mean, people look at me and say, "Oh man, you know, you must have the genetics." Oh, Jesus Christ! Let me tell you a story to go against that grain. So I was a really late bloomer on top of being slow and overweight, like late bloomer, like didn't get a hair on my cock till I was 17 years old.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so,
Nice.
So imagine this: 15 years old, freshman football, and there's a freshman team, there's a JV team, there's a varsity team, and there's 50 plus on every team. So we're talking close to 200 kids. And this is in the day when
You're a fat boy. You're a fat freshman.
Fat freshman.
I was too. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, I know exactly. And you played freshman on the freshman
I was
team.
on the B team.
Okay, you're B team. What are you, center, right guard?
I was a center.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Yeah,
just painting this picture. I know this story.
Put him in a place where he just got to kind of sit there.
Yep. Feed him, keep him fed, and keep him standing there in the middle.
That's it.
There we go.
So the coach said, in those days when the coach said take a shower, you had to take a shower.
Yeah.
You know, now a coach would be fired for that. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you know, basically, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, please tell me I'm the only one that I'm not the only one who didn't go through puberty over the summer. You know, and
oh fuck,
because I mean, at the end of 8th grade, there was a couple of us.
Yeah.
I was like, come on, man, I know who you are. Please tell me that you're trying to avoid this too.
Yeah.
Everybody got butt naked and went in that shower, and so what I do, I had to drop my pants, and I'm not a single hair on my cock, climbing into a shower with close to 200 dudes, and I mean, my face was fucking burning in shame. You know, I mean, at the time, huge at the time. Looking back, it's kind of funny. It's just, there's nothing that I could have done about it. It was a natural thing. I was just late to bloom. But, I mean, that right there was that, I mean, the amount of pressure, and, you know, God knows, I mean, as soon as that got out in the halls, I mean, holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, you know.
Andersen doesn't have, yeah.
Oh, my God, you know, and it was like, so it was another one of these things to where, but that also shaped me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it was, at the time, I thought my life was coming to an end. I'm thinking, God, I better transfer schools. I better do this. I better do that.
Right.
And really when it came down to, you know, honestly, I just decided to kind of like, I didn't even tell my parents. I was really close to my mom. I just kept it inside and just, I mean, at that point, I'd already been kind of beat down. What's one more thing on? So I just kind of buried it and just went through. And when I say buried it, just hunkered down and just added it to the list.
Yeah.
But I think the thing of what I really am getting at here is that's, for a young male, that's a pretty traumatic experience.
Yeah.
You know, and looking back, thank God that happened as well, because me being under massive amounts of pressure, even as a fat little boy, shaped my fucking character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If people understand, pressure will shape your character.
100%.
Yeah, and people try to avoid these situations when it comes down, stop running from it and start running to it.
Correct.
You know, so all of you that look at me and think, oh, yeah, he's 52, still in good shape. He must have looked like that his whole life. No. Christ, not even close.
No, you were disguised as a 5-year-old boy in freshman year in school. I mean, and no, that's you know, and I can remember some kids in the locker rooms that were like, you know, that hadn't bloomed yet, and they got ridiculed.
Oh my God,
know?
Ridicule is an understatement. In those days, you'd get in trouble for that shit now.
Well, and that's the thing. I went to my school. and from my perception at least, was not like a really bully heavy, like the really cool kids in my school, like just a really nice, it's a great school, Forest Hill Central. I'm just giving a shout out. And I only went there my freshman year, and then I was homeschooled after that. But I was JV my freshman year, so I was a big kid.
You told me this story.
Yeah,
you
I
like
was a
varsity,
big kid. Then
varsity.
I got moved up. Yeah. So I was a big boy. I was a chunky guy, but I was tall. I'm like like how I am today, just not jacked.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. But yeah, I can remember in the showers, like guys would be like really embarrassed, and then like other guys were like, we had full blown bushes. We were like '70s porn stars. And
dude, I'm telling you, I have never ever in my life wanted something so bad than probably in that moment.
Yeah.
Like if I just had a couple of hairs, I would feel better.
Jesus. Yeah, no doubt. So after college, we started our sports career, or how did this all come about?
So basically, college. So I check into college on about 180, and I came out of there about 260, and I was fucking cock strong.
Really?
Cock strong. Like I could go to any gym and I could just light people up. But here's the thing. So I'm in my early 20s, and I'm a beast, but I mentally I don't understand. I'm still that fat kid. I don't have the confidence. My physical prowess and my confidence were like worlds apart. And so at that point, I probably had the strength to jump right in to, I probably would have needed a year maybe to start to play with the implements as a pro strongman, but Jesus Christ, when I came out of college, I was damn near as strong as I'd ever been. It's just that age where you're like a rubber band. You never get hurt. You can just push yourself. Anyway, so I didn't have the confidence to start yet, and I knew I needed to develop. That's what I believed. And I was like, well, I don't want to get a job. So I'm gonna start some businesses, and I'm gonna find it, because if I start a business, I can have the time I need to train. If I'm going to some job, which I never had an intention to get a job, and so I started some businesses and failed. Funny enough, the first one was actually a meal prep, way ahead of his time, 20 years ahead of his time, because I already recognized the need. It was just nobody else did. So it actually did fairly well. It just logistically it killed me, because it was like, I was bringing meals to gyms, and they were actually selling, but they got so spread apart. Next thing food was perishing, and the whole thing just took a dump. Yeah. So I tried some other gigs, and as an entrepreneur, you're going to fail. Mm-hmm. But I had already dealt with failure. I just knew that I just kept going, and finally, I'm completely broke to the point where I don't have anything to eat. Like, this is how I would eat. I would go to a grocery store, push a cart around, and I would eat as I walked around. And then pretending to shop, and I would eat, and then I would basically just dump the cart and walk outside. I never had anything in my pockets. It was all my stomach, but that's how broke I was.
Oh my God!
And I had to do that for a couple of weeks. So I would rotate stores. I had this little CRX. And it was just such a little piece of shit. Didn't even have second gear. So your first gear, wind it up, and then dump it into third. Yeah. So I rotated grocery stores, because I couldn't do that, too many times, in a week. So I just kept spreading out to grocery stores. That's how I would, that's how I would eat. And
get a rotisserie chicken, put it in.
Well, this is even before rotisseries. They didn't even have that. Remember the bins?
Yeah.
You'd walk up, and it was like the bulk food. So I would just grab handfuls of shit and keep walking, So anyway, I finally was like, okay, I got to do something. Well, I know that I made quite a lot of money as a kid in college painting houses. So I said, I'm going to start a painting company. But this time, I'm going to do it a little bit more officially. And so I started it, but first year completely illegal. No license, no insurance. Literally, I got this little beater truck, and the whole business existed in that truck. And fast forward 5 years later, I had grown it to almost 25 employees, 24 employees, and sold it for $500,000. It was my first exit.
All right.
So for a kid in his mid to late 20s, that was a pretty big move.
Yeah.
So at that point, I dumped off the company, took the money, and it was right about that time. Like, the universe started lining up for me, because right at that point, I had the confidence to go start to compete. And then, bam, at that point, I was a monster. I was so much bigger and stronger than I needed to be. So I just went in, won my first contest, qualified for the national, placed high enough at the nationals to get it to the international travel team, and off I went. And so that was basically after college, and I ran, and keep in mind, I kept my entrepreneur spirit going the whole time. So basically when I'm doing that, I took that $500,000 and I started basically investing in real estate and flipping homes and doing all that kind of stuff. And then 7 years in pro strongman, and at that point I beat myself up pretty good. As we talked about addiction, I had a couple of addictions at that point, dealing with my back that had a couple of ruptured discs. And then it got to the point where I had to have a surgery, and I had an agent that was we were actually doing some pretty cool shit. We actually had me in a Super Bowl commercial, 2006 Super Bowl commercial.
Really?
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of guys in there. It was a lot. It was called Sports Heaven. So there was also, it was baseball players, football players, race car drivers. Anyway, so my agent tells me, he says, "Hey, the surgeon says if you go back on the circuit, you're going to be back here for another surgery in less than a year." So, and he was blunt. He said, "If you want to keep working with me, we're going to have to put you somewhere else."
Okay.
I said, "All right, where are we going?" So I was like, "I'm not going to get a job. That's all I'm thinking."
Yeah. Terrifying. That's like the worst feeling ever. It's so funny. And I just real quick to how many times I'm running into a situation where I'm like, fuck, the world's going to end. And that feeling of filling out a job application and doing all that. It's it's that pit in your stomach and you're like, okay, you know what? That's not going to happen. I will never work for another person again. And it's like, what do I have to do? Well, I got to figure it the fuck out. And so you go right back in. It's like that pain. To me nowadays, and you haven't had a job with working for somebody.
Never.
Imagine working for a car dealer. It's the most painful thing, especially when the car dealer is your father. It's the most painful thing in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
And the auto industry is a fucking trap. It's very hard to get out of it once you're in. And if you've established a little bit of success, which when you're in it seems like a mountain to climb, but it's really not. The minute you get out of it, you're like, holy shit, I'm out of that.
Yeah.
The day I left my last position at an auto group, I was like, that's it, I'm done. I went and got my throat fucking tattooed. I was like, that's it, I'm done. I'm never going to do that again. And then it's so funny, though, because now I know that feeling that you're saying where it's like, well, what the fuck am I going to do? Well, no, I'm not getting a 9 to 5.
Well, the thing with me was there was never a plan B. And because there was no plan B, I knew what I wanted to do. I was just going to keep chasing it. I was broke. I was, stealing food, or I should say eating food, in the grocery store to feed myself.
Stealing.
I justified it wasn't stealing.
Okay. It's called test shopping.
That's right. Yeah. And so, but no plan B, man. That's powerful shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fuck. Burn the boats.
Yeah, 100%. But the idea of, okay, where are we putting me? Because I'm not going to get a job. He said, well, I think we're going to put you in pro wrestling. I was like, holy shit. I never was really a fan. Well, I was a fan of the big guys, but not really a fan of what I was watching. I just liked, if there was a big dude in the ring, I was watching him.
Yeah.
Because I was infatuated. That's where my whole thing came from. When I experienced lifting weights and I was good at it, I was like, this is me.
Yeah.
And anybody that was big, funny enough, side note. So I remember, being this weird attracted to big dudes. But it was because I was obsessed.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, God, am I gay? No, literally. And then the first time that I saw a big muscular chick, that feeling went times 10, because now all of a sudden the sexual thing was added onto infatuation.
Oh, okay.
I was like, thank God.
Yeah.
I was like, boy, this thing really turned around a bit quick,
Am I gay? That's funny. But there's a lot of heterosexual men that are think about it. No one gives a fuck about going to watch the physique shows. Everybody wants to see the monsters.
Yep.
Everybody wants,
Yeah.
No, nobody does. Terry, John's wife, is giving me a hard time right now, but it's true.
100%.
Nobody's like, yeah, you guys catch the physique event that's going on? It's like, it's going on at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Nobody gives a fuck. We're
Everyone
gonna
wants
go.
to see the 280-pound veiny gnarly dude come waddling out on the
There's nothing
stage.
special about your board shorts. Sorry. I already have pent up frustration in the bodybuilding world just because I get fucking ran around by bodybuilders all day. It's a very broke industry. It's a very, very broke industry. That's the other thing too that I respect about bodybuilders, like who have created businesses and done things.
Yeah.
Because 99% of bodybuilders,
Don't.
you're like they're so consumed. It's like, dude, if you would have just taken a little bit of that effort you put into your abs
I'm
and
telling
applied it into
Brother, I'm telling you right now, and I've said over and over and over, if you've become good at some sort of, and I call it like a cult sport, because we're not talking about a mainstream sport. If you become good at bodybuilding, and even good, if you've competed and you've actually just fared, even, you've been competitive, and it doesn't matter, bodybuilding, powerlifting, strongman, and you took that ethic and those habits and you put it towards making money, you will be a millionaire.
Yeah, 100%.
There's no question, and probably in about 3 years.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. The amount of discipline that it takes to achieve just getting on stage and being at a competitive level is insane. And that it's the same level of discipline it takes to like sit down and start a business and work every single day. So it's unacceptable. I always say this, like, no one gives a fuck about your Ferrari if you have bitch tits, and nobody gives a fuck about your six pack if you're in a Camry. Like, no one gives a fuck.
Brother, I'm telling you, that's a huge chunk of the people I serve with my coaching are the people that have basically they found a way to become successful with their finances, but there's other parts of their lives that they just they couldn't crack the code. And when I show them the roadmap and I help them, implement it in their lives, they're like, oh my God, this is easy. And then they can achieve that, basically greatness everywhere, and they can keep it.
Yeah, 100%.
It's absolutely, again, I think it's people that don't know the roadmap, they believe that in many cases it's going to be harder than it is, as to where, as coaches, we come in and say, look, yes, there's a challenge, but our job is to show you how to make this streamlined.
Yep.
And that's what we do.
And taking the guidance is what it's all about.
That's exactly right. So, anyways, in terms of, so strongman's over, time to go to wrestling. And basically it was like, I had this big, massive physique. So I didn't, I had no idea to do it. So I went to a school and I kind of learned the dance, if you will.
Which school?
It was called, oh, Jesus Christ. It was up in Bay Area.
Okay, so it wasn't the one right here.
No.
That John Cena went to. Oh, what's that one called?
No, but I know that one. That was called, I think that was called UPW at one point.
Yeah.
Rick Bassman.
Yeah, Rick Bassman. That's exactly
100%.
who it is.
Yeah, I know Rick, and Rick actually he kind of aided me in some of my wrestling journey. Great guy.
I've heard all good things about Rick Bassman.
Rick's a cool cat, man. Really cool cat. And so, anyway, so I basically learned how to do the dance, and I had to go. This is another really, really tough one. I've got 6 months before, I'm competing in Europe in amphitheaters with 10, 15,000 people. And all of a sudden now I find myself wrestling in a fucking high school gym with like 30 people sitting there.
Oh, really?
And I got more teeth than everybody in the front row.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I doing? But I realized I had to, you gotta basically walk before you can run.
Yeah.
And so I did these matches. Basically, Terry was filming me so that we could take this footage and send it off to companies.
Yeah.
And, so my agents full-blown fraudulated a resume that said that I'd been doing it for a lot longer than I had been, and sent it off to a bunch of Japanese companies, and pow! All of a sudden, we get an opportunity.
Really?
He calls me. He's like, "Hey, you're going to Japan next week. Don't fuck this up. We got one shot." I was like, "Oh boy, this is interesting. This could be my 8th ever wrestling match." It was a pay-per-view in Sapporo, Japan. And, the guys I'm wrestling with, they've been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
But here's
Are
the
they little
thing.
Japanese guys, or?
I mean, they keep in mind, the wrestlers, they're Japanese, but they're not little. Most of them are bigger.
Okay.
Because they want them to be big. They want it, the guy in the ring's not supposed to look like the guy in the stands.
No, right. Yeah,
So
it would be just really odd to see a bunch of Japanese guys like in a WWE ring. I mean, it would look tiny compared to
Totally.
Show and Undertaker and
Yeah. So anyway, I had no fucking clue what I was doing. And basically what I knew what my job was to basically make a lot of noise, flex my muscles, and get people excited. And I was able to do that enough to basically, they took me in a mini tour, which is basically a test run. I did well enough for them to sign me, and basically it wasn't a bigger company, but I got on board. And I was there for probably a year and change, and then I got on with New Japan, which was the company I wanted to. That was the biggest company in Japan, and worked with them. So, again, man, no plan B, just freaking full speed ahead. And, it's like the bigger the obstacle, the more it's going to scare you. But the bigger, I guess you'd call it literally the paycheck.
Yeah.
And
usually the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward.
Yeah. I mean, I was told when I was, you can't do that. You're 34 years old. You can't be a pro wrestler. Okay, well, I've been told I can't my whole life.
Right.
So I'm going to try. We'll see what happens. And then it was a great, I wrestled all over the place. Japan, did a lot in Mexico. I'm telling you, Mexico, dude, they love that shit.
Yeah.
You can wrestle in a main event arena in Mexico. You go to Starbucks the next day, and you see yourself on the front page of the sports section. No other country on the world reports wrestling on the sports section.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when I ran that out, and in those situations, you just get released. You don't. I mean, when you're getting paid well, you're not going to leave that.
Right.
So one day they decide they're going to find a younger version of you, and that's the end. So I came home and, well, the juices are still flowing. I'm surely not going to get a job. Now I'm 42, so I guess I'm going to be a pro bodybuilder. And so, I basically, I dropped down, and I mean, keep in mind, I did all the work up front. I mean, by the time when I got into strongman, I was almost 300 pounds, and I'd been, bouncing around 300 pounds my whole career. So the beef was already there. I just needed to know how to get on stage. So did my first show, won my first show, went to nationals, won that. My third ever bodybuilding contest was my pro debut.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where was that?
Sacramento.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's just one of these things to where, again, people are always going to tell you can't do something. And they might be right, but don't let that be the reason you don't try.
Right. Yeah. What anybody says should have no impact whatsoever.
Yeah.
Even the people closest to you.
Yeah. And through that whole timeline, going back to our start of our podcast here, I had to manage, obviously, traveling, addiction, entrepreneurship, my kids, my wife, and so there's a lot to it, and I guess, again, what it comes to, people say, people tend to back away, that's too much, I can't do this. Bullshit. We are so much more capable than we think we are.
100%.
And I think, going back to the beginning, thank God I figured out how to problem solve early, because when I showed up into the wrestling world, when I showed up into the bodybuilding world, and I was basically got fast-tracked myself right to the top, I had to figure out how to fucking problem solve real quick, and that's what I did.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it was funny, just to kind of go back, what you said about when you thought you were attracted to big muscular dudes, and then you met big muscular women. That just made me think back to this kid. I'm not going to say his whole name, but his name was Nick. Okay, and I can't believe I even remember this. So Nick's mom was a pro bodybuilder out of Portland, Maine. Okay, and she was a big lady, probably 6'2", 6'3", and jacked, huge. And his dad was an artist, and you'd walk into their great room, and it like when you walk in their foyer, right? Like right when you walk in the front door, there was this painting of Nick's mom, fully nude, bush, everything. And we're like 9, 10 years old. You know what I mean? And this woman is just yoked, laid out, bush out, tits out, everything. And like, could you imagine being a 9-year-old and your mom, like, hey, I'm going over to Nick's house. And you walk in, and I'm telling you, this painting was, I'm 9. 10 maybe. So it might have been bigger than I'm making it out to sound, or smaller than I'm making it out to sound right now. But as a kid, when you walk in and it's like, put it this way, probably over life size.
Oh, Jesus. So it's a monster.
Yeah. And just you saying that kind of made me think back then, because I was like, I couldn't stop looking at her. I'm 10 years old. I'm like, do I like this? Is this something that I'm into or not? But like, I mean, oh, God damn, that was an interesting thing to learn as a kid.
Well, I mean, when you see a female that's actually developed some muscle and really, really in good shape, it's a very different look.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, even attraction has changed, tremendously in terms of women's physique. Nowadays, the women with the best bodies, I said this in another podcast, but the women with the best bodies train like guys. Mm-hmm. And I've been getting comments too that are like, no, who's to say women train like guys? Women are training like women. That's the same thing as guys. It's like, no, listen, this is new for you guys, okay? This is new for you guys. As like a big thing, you know what I mean? Like, this is new. Anyways, we took a lot of heat from that. But anyways, yeah, it's a fact. And women have shoulders now and arms and things like that, and it's not so frail. My wife, you guys know my wife, she's a tiny little lady, right?
And you're a monster.
And I'm a monster, but she now is like, I got her in the gym the last few years, like lifting heavy, lifting hard, and now she's like in the mirror checking out her, she calls herself a scrondon.
Ah, that's cute.
Isn't that cute?
That's cute. She's a cutie, dude.
She's so great.
Yeah,
she's the best heart you've ever seen. She's awesome. But anyways, but now she's into it now. She's like, I want a booty, I want legs, because she's tiny. Like her legs. When I first met her, she had no butt, no nothing. Just I like petite, small women.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the fit ones. Fit is big for me. I like the female. Look at my wife. That describes what I'm.
Well, yeah.
There we go.
Terry, you got out of the truck when we met up at and like your legs were like, I was like, God damn, like, look at her legs. She could kick my ass in a second. But yeah, no, it's incredible. It's incredible what you've done.
I'm small right now.
Oh, every bodybuilder says that too. I'm small right now.
Well, we're both in our 50s. I mean, it's a different drill to.
My God, though, if I were to be, you guys got to realize like what you make people feel like that are at the pool and stuff.
Not my problem.
No, it's not your problem. It's not your problem. It's not your problem at all. But you guys got to know, like, everyone's like, they like people. And I know this because I used to be that guy. I used to be a grown-up, I'd be at the same pools, right? An upscale pool, you see a ripped guy and ripped wife, and you're like, fuck these guys. Fuck them.
Well, and then when they find out that we're in our 50s, then it's then it's a whole different drill. I mean, because you got being in shape and 20s or 30s is much more common. 40s it gets thins out pretty good. 50s it's thin. There's not a lot of, and the thing about it is it's habits, man. It's the way you live your life. We've lived our life the same way for decades.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that rhythm, it's effective, and it's people don't understand. It's like these little bitty commitments every day that stack up over time.
Right.
It's like people say all the time, how you must work out like 3 or 4 hours a day. No, I work out like as I get older. I may work out sometimes like 30 or 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But the difference is that I don't miss days.
Right.
It's the question is not how many hours a day do you work out. The question is how many decades do you have the balls to not miss?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's funny because like I used to think like, oh my God, I got to really get it in today, and now I've been like, just consistent.
Yeah,
every single
show
day.
Up, baby.
Show up, and then my rest days I actually enjoy them. I'll take my dogs out for a walk, for like a long walk and stuff like that. But then when I'm back in the gym, it's like 45 minutes to an hour. Go hard, go to failure, but not heavy. And I maintain a pretty big, large frame and physique, and
it's so the thing that's crazy is it's so individualized. You know, people think, oh, well, he does this, I'm going to do that. Well, that probably is not going to work for you.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's like, as we get older, our formula constantly changes. And I think that's a big thing for people, too. They don't understand how to maneuver with their body needing something different, you know? And, yeah, I mean, it's, as we know as coaches, you know, it's a moving target.
Right.
You know, nothing ever stays in one place too long.
Correct.
You know, but you know, and again, you know, the way that we live our life, going back to the habits, this is the stuff that literally helped me become me when I was that little boy that was as pathetic as could be, you know,
Right.
because I realized, okay, I need to start, like, for example, I needed to lay out my clothes every night before I went to sleep, because when I woke up, I needed to not be faced with the decision about what I was going to wear. Because at the morning, oh my God, I'm freaking out about what's going to happen. I got anxiety, and I can't make.
Do you
a
still do
decision.
that?
I do.
You still plan your outfits the night
Brother,
before?
I
do too. That's why
yeah,
I'm asking. Like,
100%.
I feel like I'm like the only person that does that.
Bro, I'm a 3 easy wins guy. I wake up with 3 easy wins. First thing I do when I wake up is I go in the bathroom, and I always have a big thing of water in there. I guzzle down, you know, usually close to a liter of water. So it just takes a couple of shots. I get my first easy win with the water, start rehydrating, start feeling better right away. Got my clothes laid out, so they're already there. I just grab them, put them on. I walk out. The coffee maker is already set. Just push the button. Boom, it's brewing. And the fact that I've got those 3 easy wins, my brain is like, okay, what next? And I started these habits when I was young, and I realized the benefit of them as I continued to grow into a man, and I've never stopped them.
You know what's crazy is like my morning rituals, routine, and everything is like something I look forward to so much that I'll go to bed earlier just so I can have the feeling of my morning routine.
Yep.
I wake up, you know, really early, but I don't have an alarm set on my phone or anything. I just get up when my body tells me to. Typically that's around 4 o'clock, 4:30, but some days it's far earlier. And it's like when my body tells me, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, like you're up, you're good to go, you know. And I've worked my ass off to get the level of sleep that I do, between CPAP, sleep studies, things like that. You know, it's like my sleep is fucking good. Yeah, really, really good. And I can pick when I'm falling asleep. You know what I mean? But anyways, there's some nights where it's like it's still light out. You know, Lizzie's
I go
like,
to bed all the time when it's light out.
it's the best. I say this too. I go, this is living. Every time I'm like, Lizzie's like, I look at my phone. It's
I'm gonna
like
use that.
7:15.
I'm gonna use that because
like,
she's
this
always
is life.
she's like, it's like being married to an 80-year-old man. It's still light outside.
I can't wait to get up and celebrate my next day and celebrate my morning wins. I literally, and there's mornings that I wake up and I'm like, because I wake up and read. Every morning. So I wake up, I have my coffee situation just like you. I drink my water just like you. I have a big ass Yeti thing that I fill up the night before, just like you. I plan my outfits out every single day. I plan my gym outfits out too. I know my change. I know if I'm shaving my head that day. It's like a whole thing. I know my plan. I wake up, I go straight into my office, I put music on, and I have to listen to music every single day. That's like a non-negotiable.
First thing I do when I get out there, push the coffee maker. The next thing I do is go for music.
Yep. Got to have the music, and then I literally sit and I listen to an album, and usually it's one of the same 3 albums every single morning. Come Around Sundown by Kings of Leon is like usually my go-to. Nice. And I open up my book and I sit there uninterrupted for the most part. Okay, and I'll get a chapter in, and then I check whatever Freddie has sent me. Because every morning he sends it to me. I don't know when he sleeps. It's really strange, his whole thing. We don't ask; it just gets done. But every morning I wake up and I have all kinds of just amazing edits and visuals and stuff. So I go through them. I set my day up a little bit, and then that's it. And I love my fucking mornings.
Dude, I'm the same way. Check this out. Try this one. So when I go and I start putting music on, I put headphones in because I put an ear pod in because I want to make sure I'm not loud for her.
Yeah.
But I basically, and my music will change because what I'm looking for is a song that's going to make me sing.
Oh.
I'm telling you, brother, when you put a song on, it makes you sing. your brain starts releasing some of the best
Yeah,
fucking
that's-
goddamn chemicals in your
It's
bloodstream.
that is serotonin. That is
Oh, buddy,
oxytocin.
I'm
that
telling
is
you, when I
love
find myself fucking singing, I'm like, okay, you're here.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think a song will do it, and I don't find myself because I don't really try to sing. It's like you hear a song and it pushes that emotional button.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm telling you, a good, a song that'll make. And I'm a terrible singer. It's not about being good.
I was about to ask you too.
Yeah,
I was
terrible,
like,
terrible.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just it's the way it
Simon
makes me
Cowell
feel.
is gonna pass.
Yeah, oh yeah.
All
I
right.
mean, always usually the precursor's a smile. I can feel the smile coming on, like that emotional
Yep.
button got pushed. Okay, here we go. You know?
Yep.
And if
Gotta
I
listen to
sing a little bit every morning, it's another one of those things that really puts me in that space.
It's a good win.
Another
It's
win.
a good win.
Another win. I'm telling you, you get those easy wins, and you're what is it? I'm having a brain fart. The reticular activating system.
Oh.
It basically scans your world looking for more.
Yeah.
It's like, the wins are important. Well, your body's okay. Well, good. Or excuse me, your brain. Well, you can get a win here. You can get a win here. Next thing you know, you're just bouncing around doing shit that makes you feel really good. And guess what? It's all highly productive.
The average mediocre man is looking at us, would think of something like this as it's not obtainable. Like, could you picture the average guy who's like, gotta get up and go to work today, gotta get my, and it's like to think like, I'm racing to wake up.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine? Like, normally it's like we're gonna sleep in, hit the snooze button. I race to wake up. I race to start my day. I go to bed early to race to start my day. And it's like that mindset change and that level of rewarding life like that, and it only comes from doing exactly what you've done and what I've done, and that's becoming. It's like at the end of the day, when you're a slave to the system, and you're caught up in the matrix or whatever the fuck you want to call it. There's no way when you're living by somebody else's terms are you winning on your own terms. Any win that you have is a direct win for the person that controls your life and controls your system and your playbook. And you have to become like a hacker in your own programming and know like how to make that switch in your brain.
But I guess there is that section of most people's lives as coaches. We can teach them to maximize and really enrich that time away from their job, like their morning and the stuff like we're talking about.
Right.
And it's most people, they've just somehow been influenced by the system. And when I say the system, it's just like go to work, go home, watch TV, and there's no enrichment. There's nothing that makes them want to look forward to tomorrow until Saturday.
Yep.
And that's one of the things I love as a coach, man. When people's lives get changed, because let's be honest, how many people have we coached that, they've got a pretty good job, they're not in love with it, but they got a lot of responsibilities. They got kids, and it's not like they can just leave that job. But we can basically show them how to live their life when they're not at that job, which will improve the quality of their life tenfold. And that translates into their relationships and their own. That's pretty cool. I mean, back to your point, I wish that everybody got a chance to experience what it would be like to live on your own terms. But unfortunately, that's very, I don't even know what the percentage is, but it's minuscule.
And most people today metaphorically look like you freshman year in the locker room, right? That's how they are. They have no balls.
Yeah.
They won't take the risks. They won't do the things that it takes. They won't commit to anything because everybody wants to be comfortable. Everybody wants that feeling, and they don't want to be inconvenienced in a painful state. They don't want to see themselves for who they truly are. So they're going to do whatever they can to distract that image in the mirror. And that image in the mirror is deflating to most people, because when you look at yourself in the mirror and when you are doing nothing with your life and doing nothing with your life and be doing the standard and what you should be doing, have a job, take care of your family, stay in somewhat good shape, like those are things that you should be doing. We know that. But it's like when there's more, it's really embarrassing to look at yourself in the mirror. And it's really embarrassing to know like that you should be embarrassed about yourself. It has nothing to do with anybody else thinks. But you're letting life slip by.
Dude, And it's like if people would take the effort that they use to try to escape their life and put that effort into building a better life, that's, oh my God. You know, of course, it's easy to run from your life, and it's real, especially when it comes to going right back to our original topic. Substance is a massive way where people just kind of cover up the fact that they're not happy with the fact they don't have the balls to do what they should have done.
Correct.
You know, but I tell, if you take the effort that you're using to avoid or to distract yourself, and you put that into what you really want, you'll start making progress.
100%.
You know, and it's sometimes it takes a mentor or a coach to actually get someone to take that step. I mean, for young people, I say all the time, look, if you found yourself in a job you don't like, it's not too late.
Yeah.
Basically, you got 24 hours in the day. When you get home, don't watch TV. Spend 2 hours developing a side hustle.
Yep.
And if that side hustle is something you want to do, you're going to go home looking forward to it. And pretty soon, that side hustle, because you like it, you want to do it, you're getting so good at it, it's going to end up eclipsing the income of the job you don't like.
Right.
And then you basically you completely switch sides of the fence.
Yep. And the other thing to that point is that if you don't think you have time to start a side hustle, you do. But if you don't because you don't think you have time, then you're the exact employee that they were looking for.
100%. You just made a video about that.
I did. We got to take a quick break. This has been a lot of fun getting to get to know you, to work with you.
Yeah.
You know, today I'm just going back to this morning, just this new stuff that we're going to be doing. And I just, you know, learning more about your story, you know, and for somebody that has accomplished so much, you're really down to earth.
You know, and I think when it comes down to it, you know, I was so grounded in the beginning, you know, this is just me, you know what I mean? And it's easy to, you know, have moments where you get a little cocky here and there, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when all the dust settles, you know, and you can kind of tell that, because as I moved through these different athletic careers, I developed really, really good friendships in all of them. You know what I mean? And you know, I think it's the sign of a person with good character that also is down to earth. You know, his ability to develop friendship is fairly strong.
Who's the most down to earth pro athlete that you know?
Oh man, I mean, honestly, there's this dude. He's actually in WWE right now. Real name Chad Allegra. And I can say, but there's two of them now that I think about it. And Fergal Devitt, this is, he's one of the top right now. What is it? Finn Balor. Anyway, but Chad, I remember meeting Chad, and it was in Japan. And he was so nice, and it was like so nice and so genuine. I almost thought something was up. Like, what's the hustle? You know what I mean? And then as you get to know him, you're like, this is just who he is.
Wow.
Just, I mean, like the fucking nicest guy. I mean, honest, caring, you name it. I mean, just through and through. I mean, we still send each other texts. You know, man, I miss you. I love you, brother. You know,
right.
And Fergal Devitt, the same way. I mean, just a great dude. And here's a dude who's running the top of the wrestling world. But you send him a text, he'll get back to you like it was 10 years ago, and he was just getting started.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that.
Yeah. And there's something to be said for people that have character like that, because when their character, you know, someone that has really good character is not going to be altered dramatically by fame and fortune.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Like, you know, and especially, you know, if you come from humble beginnings, some people, it's like they get conditioned to, like, they don't want to be confused for what they once were, so that ego takes over.
Yeah. I can understand where that comes from, but at the same time, I think like the fact that, you know, I overly own, you know, my rough start, because that was my fucking blessing. If I didn't have that shit, a lot of times the fact that someone came from, call it the trailer park. I mean, we weren't like poor, but I was pathetic as all get out. The fact that someone came from a trailer park and now they're a multimillionaire, that's part of their story. That makes them great. I mean, I think owning everything about who we are is part of what makes us learn to truly be unapologetically ourselves.
Yeah.
And that right there, being authentic and accepting every piece of who you are is so important in terms of, really just being happy in this place.
Yep.
When we're constantly, you see it all the time. People they've just somehow been distracted enough in their lives. They've never become comfortable with who they are. And they live in a very, I would say unhappy, but very possibly an unhappy place for many people.
Yep. 100%. This was fun.
Yeah. 100%, brother.
This is really good. We're going to keep doing these, guys. We're going to keep creating together and having a blast doing it, man. If you guys like what you heard, make sure that you go check out John. We'll put all his socials below. We appreciate you guys tuning in to another episode of the Wolves Only podcast powered by JWX.